Jeskai Black, he's playing against Josh Lamunyon, who is playing Esper Control. Now, one thing to note about this particular format, Patrick, it's a kind of a slow one.
It is. There are some decks that can pressure you early on in the game. Most notably, a Tarka Red, landfall strategies. I've even started running into some black-red aggro lists, some Mardu aggro lists online. But the most popular decks are definitely playing a mid-range, airing towards control style of game. The Megamorph decks, various builds of Esper and Jeskai, it's not that fast among the top decks of the format.
Lamunyon starts things off with a shambling vent. Scott-Vargas goes down to 19 via Flooded Strand to search up a Sunken Hollow as game number 1 of round 1 underway here. Luis going to sacrifice another Flooded Strand, fall down to 18, and perhaps it'll be a Jace Vryn's Prodigy on the way. A card we are going to see a lot of today, I imagine.
Yes, and I mean, this is one of the earlier checks that this format has. A turn to Jace, goes uncontested. Huge advantage for the player having it. If he gets killed, we move on with life.
Luis a rule breaker here. He likes those lands in front of his creatures. Tisk, tisk. And he even does coverage.
He should know better.
So this is inexcusable to start the day.
Testing our judging staff early on in the game.
Unbelievable. The Jace is going to survive here, so we're going to head back Luis's way. He's going to activate Jace. It's time to draw and discard. Down goes Fiery Impulse. Looks like Scott-Vargas has missed his land drop. Now, Luis does have 2 copies of Mantis Rider in the grip right now, but unable to find a third land. That's what Jace is going to help him do. Lamunyon with a third land. You see Bloodstained Mire, Flooded Strand out there with a Shambling Vent. Scott-Vargas is going to take a look at the graveyard. 2 Flooded Strands, Fiery Impulse will activate Jace. Time to draw and discard again. Can he find land number 3? That's the question. Well, he's got a real decision here on what to discard. It looks like he's found, I believe, a Plains, which is not ideal. One of the things about Jeskai Black, it does have good mana, but sometimes it does kind of falter around like this.
Yeah, the mana base definitely supports 4 colors, but it's not a guarantee that you have everything on time. The deck is built around battle lands and basic lands, and so your draws that are basic land heavy may not put all the colors together that quickly.
Jeskai Charm with the discard. Second Plains was the land there for Scott-Vargas before passing the turn back over to Lamunyon. He'll sacrifice 2 fetch lands. An island is what he'll find with the Flooded Strand. For Bloodstained Mire, we will see. I imagine a basic coming so he can turn on all the battle lands moving forward. And it will be a basic swamp here for Josh. Now there is a Sunken Hollow entering the battlefield untapped thanks to the 2 basics. Lamunyon will just pass the turn back. Playing a very Esper Control game, waiting for Luis to do something and respond in kind.
Yep.
No answer to the Jace yet.
The deck doesn't have all that much targeted removal. Esper Control is trying to play with sweepers and some big trumps. There isn't that much spot removal for the deck, so the deck is vulnerable to a turn 2 Jace on the play. Often this ends up happening where Scott-Vargas gets to loot several times, improve his hand quality, and get the Jace flipped.
Another Fire Impulse down. That's card number 5. So Jace, Telepath Unbound is here. Now there is a Smoldering Marsh. That's the red mana Luis was looking for. It's going to enter the battlefield untapped thanks to the 2 basics. And now here's Mantis Rider. First real thing that I think that Josh, well, I don't want to say that Jace is something you need to ignore, but this is the first real thing that Josh is able to deal with, at least with Surge of Righteousness in the main deck.
There's a lot of targets. I mean, when the format has a bunch of gold cards floating around, all these gold threats, your cards like Surge of Righteousness and Self-Inflicted Wound, there's a lot of overlap, and players have played these cards main. I believe Tomohiro Saito recently did well in the Grand Prix with 4 copies in the main deck of Self-Inflicted Wounds.
Yep.
So you can push the boundaries on some of these cards that look like sideboard cards because with all the gold threats floating around, there's enough overlap.
Blue to Delta here for Luis. Now another copy of Mantis Rider. He'll serve in with this one. We'll see if Lamunyon has an answer. Looks like the answer is no for right now. He's going to fall down to 17. Jace going to go up to 7, and Utter End is going to take care of that. So that'll be exiled, and we'll head back Lamunyon's way.
Not a huge deal there for Scott-Vargas. Not a whole lot of good stuff in the graveyard to be flashed back. So I believe Scott-Vargas, if he had the choice, would have just kept Jace around as a looter. Doesn't really need to fight over that Planeswalker. I believe only a Jeskai Charm really to flash back.
It's a Majoring Network is land number 6, and now Dragonlord Slumgar is here to take that Mantis Rider. Mantis Rider conveniently has haste, so Lamunyon will serve in with it. Scott-Vargas going to fall down to 15. We'll make it 14 with the Polluted Delta. We'll see what land Luis wants to search up. and he'll go with a basic island. We'll head back Luis's way now. 5 lands. Mana appears to be online at this point. Only 1 red. Not sure if he needs more than that to operate with. He's already discarded quite a few red cards in the matchup as well in Fiery Impulse and Jeskai Charm.
And Dragonlord Salumgar is very good for taking Mana Strider here because Crackling Doom is not a response.
Yep. Luis playing 4 of those this weekend. The one interesting thing about Jeskai Black, the number of Crackling Dooms has really fluctuated. And, you know, I know that you did the Open Series in Philly with Todd when he was playing the Jeskai Black deck with no Mantis Rider, playing a much more control-heavy build. So the way this deck has been built has changed quite a bit.
And you see that with the main deck Painful Truths as well.
Yep.
At this point, these Jeskai Black decks, there's so many different ways you can build them, so many excellent cards to choose from, that the list ends up being 2 of this, 2 of that, 1 of another thing. It's a very soupy deck.
Now here's another Mantis Rider. No good attacks to be had here from Scott-Vargas, so he'll just pass the turn back. Yeah, Painful Truths, a card that is certainly on the incline.
Yeah, people are starting to move this card in the main deck big time. Fewer copies of Atarka Red floating around the metagame right now than maybe a month ago. Same with the landfall strategies. So that's really the only matchup where you get punished for main deck Painful Truths.
And we're getting to the point now, too, by the way, where with Painful Truths, it's starting to make its way into Modern and Legacy.
Yes.
I don't know if it's ever going to get dialed up in Vintage. I would be surprised, but it's starting to be a cross-format superstar.
Pretty awesome with Moxes. I don't know.
It's a little greedy. I think you could find better card drawing. Maybe. Maybe.
A lot of options, but it really goes to show you just how busted Treasure Cruise was.
It does.
People are willing to pay 3 mana and 3 life to draw 3 cards, and Treasure Cruise was 1 mana. Quite a bit different.
Fire Impulse. Gonna go after Mantis Rider. That'll get the job done. In comes Mantis Rider for Scott-Vargas. The money's gonna fall down to 14. Let's see what the follow-up is here for Luis. He'll play another Jace. A Mystic Monastery is the land. That'll enter the battlefield tapped. And it looks like he's just going to pass the turn back on Scott-Vargas' end step. Lamunyon going to play Dig Through Time. Just going to figure out how much he wants to delve away. And if you do, quite a few cards are going to leave. 3 gone. 5 mana, and Negate will take care of that. So this is the interesting thing about Standard to me. Is we've already seen some funky cards here. Main deck Negate, main deck copy of Surge of Righteousness, stuff like that. This format, the metagame has evolved quite a bit.
Well, main deck Negate to me is a pretty easy card to include. Even the aggressive style decks, they're trying to kill you with Dragon Fodder, Whirling Outburst type of setups, or Become Immense, Titan Strength, Temur Battle Rage type of stuff. So even against the most aggressive strategies, Negate's got plenty of targets. And in the Dig Through Time mirrors, it's very valuable to have. You can see Lamunyon's hand, multiple copies of Ugin. It's a pretty good Negate target as well.
Not too bad.
If you look at the lists up and down, Negate's maybe not a superstar against anyone, but every deck's got good targets.
Lamunyon, as you mentioned, a couple copies of Ugin in hand right now.
Yeah,
and Utter End as well.
I think trying to test Scott-Vargas out there, he had the Ugin in hand, no land number 8. So the Dig Through Time gets countered, the door's open for Ugin to potentially resolve, but instead of drawing land number 8, he drew second copy of Ugin.
Luis going to fall down to 2 from the attack from Dragonlord Salumgar. And now here's Utter End to take care of Jace yet again, so that'll be exiled. Luis basically saying here, where I'm not going to chump block because the chance of, I mean, you're playing Esper, you're not going to be able to deal me direct damage. I don't have to worry about Wild Slash to kill me. Ugin actually does fit that bill of being a piece of direct damage. It's an expensive one at 8 mana, but it will get the job done if it resolves.
And Scott-Vargas also has to answer the Dragon Lord as well.
Yeah.
So Money's in a very good spot here.
A Prairie Stream, a 3rd copy of Jace. Lamunyon down to 11, but he's going to charge up that Mage Ring Network. And we're going to head back Josh's way. He'll take a draw step here. Picked up a copy of Negate. He's got him in his main deck this weekend as well. Going to start by attacking here with the Dragon Lord. Mantis Rider down. Will Lamunyon go for the Ugin here?
I like going for Ugin here.
I like going for it because I have a backup copy.
Yeah.
But he's just going to pass the turn back.
And it's pretty dangerous. You're giving Scott-Vargas a look at potentially several counter spells here.
Yep. Jade's going to draw a discard. Floodstrand down. Telepath Unbound. Going to be entering the battlefield now.
I guess Lamunyon, because he has the Dragon Lord in play, can afford to be a little bit conservative here, because Scott-Vargas just has to have a perfect hand to get out from under all of this. He has to be able to answer the Dragon somehow and answer the Ugin.
Jace is going to take up the 6. It's going to make Dragon Lord Slumgar into a 1-power creature. Now here's a Tasigur. Time to go delving. Luis going to definitely get rid of those fiery impulses. Those can go. Looks like Painful Truce might be able to leave Mantis Rider too. Being very selective with how he delves here. 2 copies of Tasigur in the main this weekend for Luis.
And Luis does not mind getting a Fiery Impulse, because if he gets a Fiery Impulse back with Tasigur, then he's drawing to Soulfire Grandmaster, get the Dragon off the table.
Sure.
So it looks a little weird for him to keep a shock there, but there's a potential plan.
Lamunyon going to dig through time here. Take a look at the top 7, take 2 with him. Haven't got to say that in a while because it's banned in every other format that we do coverage on. But it's still sticking around standard for now. Majoring Network up to 3 counters. Lamunyon will draw a card here.
At this point, I think Lamunyon has set up Ugin with Negate backup. Hard to see Scott-Vargas getting out of this.
I think that'll make it clear for takeoff. And here is Ugin, and that is going to get the job done. So Josh Lamunyon's going to win game number 1 here over Luis Scott-Vargas. Esper Control up a game here over Jeskai Black. As we get ready to take a look at the sideboards here between these 2 players. So we will start with Luis Scott-Vargas and his 3 Irrational Clerics, 2 Radiant Flames, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Duress, and then a bunch of 1-ups here in Dragon Lord Slumgar, Dark Petition, Virulent Plague, Dispel, Infinite Obliteration, and a Painful Truth.
So Scott-Vargas has got a pretty good anti-control package here. The 2 copies of Disdainful Stroke, the 2 copies of Duress, the Dark Petition, the Dispel, and the Painful Truce are all very solid inclusions here. I think Dragon Lord Slumgar is likely to come in as well.
On the other side of things here for Lamunyon, 3 Monastery Mentor, 3 Duress, 2 Dispel, 2 Irrational Clerics, 2 Surge of Righteousness to go along with the main deck copy that we saw in the previous game, a Painful Truce, a Negate, and another copy of Dragon Lord Slumgar.
And I think you're going to see the 3 Duresses and the 2 Dispels come in here as well. Additional copies of Surge of Righteousness to protect himself against Mantis Rider, which is one of the more dangerous cards for him in this matchup. And I think the Negate is also reasonable, along with the additional copy of Dragon Lord Slumgar.
Well, these players will shuffle up for game number 2. Luis Scott-Vargas will be on the play with his Jeskai Black deck. We'll see if he can kind of work his way through some mana troubles here as we saw that in the early stages of that game. But in the meantime, we will talk about SCG Game Night, the very popular promotion here. It's December, not a lot of time left to get the old reindeer, but Patrick, some cool stuff coming up for 2016.
Yeah, so you can head over to StarCityGames.com/Game Night for more information. Stores can run Game Night any day of the week they want, any format, sanctioned or unsanctioned. Just get players in the store for some fun and friendly magic. We send out a new kit every month. This is the December kit, which you can play for right now. January, come down the pipeline here. We have Grizzly Brand, and making its debut here on coverage. I haven't seen this one yet. In February, we have Magus of the Moon. So there it is. StarCityGames.com/Game Night for more information. Contact your Star City Games in-store play representative to bring this program to your store. And if you're a Canadian player or store owner, we have changed the shipping rates. We're no longer charging any international shipping rates to send the kits out. It's just U.S. domestic. So if you haven't brought Game Night to your store because of the shipping costs, again, contact your in-store play representative or Star City Games. And if you're a player, talk to your store owner, bring the program to your store.
There's a lot going on with Magus of the Moon here. As you take a look at the artwork, mostly the token, you see it's 2/3. It's a Minotaur. All Minotaurs are 2/3s. Boom. Perfect. Cow, Minotaur, 2/3, and then got the Magus ability. A lot to like here.
Now, how many applications are there for Minotaur tokens? I'm not so sure.
I don't know if there are any. I have to imagine there are some, but...
Yeah, I would be surprised if Theros had nothing that generated a Minotaur token.
At the very least, Riptide Replicator, at the very least.
Homelands had a Minotaur theme. Maybe there's a Minotaur token in there.
Minotaur token maker.
Didgeridoo was in that set. They had Minotaur is a supported tribe in Homelands.
Might be time for Minotaurs to make a real solid comeback. I know Shadows of Innistrad, not a lot of Minotaurs running around in Innistrad, but you can change the flavor up if you want.
For sure.
There are no rules. My favorite Minotaur of all time is the I think it's like Undead Abomination or something. It's just 2 Minotaurs just sewn together.
It's a 4/6.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. Great flavor right there.
I have to go with the classic, the Hurloon.
Just the 2/3.
Yep.
An oldie but a goodie. See, that's you, that's me. New school, old school.
It was instructional for me because the first couple cards that I opened, among my first couple Magic cards, got a Grey Ogre and a Hurloon Minotaur. And as a kid, I was able to look at these 2 cards and say, oh, okay, so If I'm willing to pay for, more restrictive colored mana, I get a slightly better deal. Okay, that's a thing.
Sure.
Very simple, very subtle.
There it is. There's the Undead Minotaur. Color shifted. I know there's two that just jammed together. It's Minotaur Abomination. Okay.
Yeah.
A limited superstar. All right, that's a bit of a stretch. I think it was just okay, but that thing is mad.
There it is, the classic.
Hello.
The original.
You know where you can get those.
StarCgames.com.
Yeah.
The alpha ones are probably whatever, $20 now or something. If they're, but they're there. You can go.
You'd be willing to sign one? Someone brought it along?
Of course.
I just want to make sure. I want to
Be
make sure.
honored. My favorite early Magic artist also did that piece.
Who's that?
Anson Maddox.
Okay. Did Anson Maddox draw Air on the Relentless?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Elvish Archers.
Okay, that's a good piece. Underway here in game number 2. Prairie Stream for Luis. I'm out now, Soulfire Grandmaster. For Lamunyon, just started off with a Sunken Hollow. Apparently Christopher Rush did Air on the Relentless. Who, I believe you got your Lightning Bolt signed by Christopher Rush, if memory serves.
did.
Very nice. Here comes the Grandmaster. It's a Painful Truths. Will this resolve? If it does, it's going to be a nice one. 3 cards coming for Scott-Vargas.
Undoing the mulligan and then some.
Yeah.
And I think this is just going to be a staple of every mid-range and control matchup going forward in Standard. Painful Truths is just excellent. The question is going to be, can you play in the main deck or not?
Yeah, and I think right now the format's pretty slow. There's not a ton of Atarka Red, but Atarka Red is also doing really well in the format. It seems to be clinching a lot of relevant tournament results, even though there's not a lot of it.
And people are playing a couple copies of Painful Truths in their main deck. That's very good news for Atarka Red.
Yeah. We will be discussing that deck quite a bit this weekend, as Patrick has been putting in some work with the old Atarka Red crew.
I have been.
Flooded Strand here for Scott-Vargas. Say a life total going up and down and all around thanks to Soulfire Grandmaster, Painful Truths. Luis back at a starting life total of 20 as he searches up a basic island. We'll see what comes next as he taps 4 mana. This is a Tassiger. Does Lamunyon have an answer to the 4/5?
You see Languish in hand, so this is a very nice play here from Scott-Vargas. If this gets countered, okay, whatever, life goes on. If it resolves, he's insulated from Languish as well because he'll have a threat that sticks around.
Lamunyon taking a look at the grip. It looks like Tassiger is going to be in here. Lamunyon will draw. Polluted Delta's land number 4, and now here's Jace. That's clearly going to resolve as Scott-Vargas is tapped out right now, and so now we're going to head back Luis's way. He'll draw. That's a Bloodstained Mire, and in come the creatures. Jeskai Black, a pretty flexible deck. I think that's what a lot of players like about it. It can play an aggressive game, it can play a controlling game, and it has no problem playing a longer game.
And you can see Scott-Vargas at this point, no real rush to add anything to the board, can just hang back. He's got 6 points of pressure in play. Lamunyon's pretty low on life. And he can simply activate Tassiger if Lamunyon doesn't do anything that's worthy of a counter spell or some other response.
Flooded Strand is land number 5 here for Josh. 3 fetch lands out there, so he's at a virtual 7 right now. And he's going to sack all 3, so it's a real 7 now. We'll see what lands he wants to dig out here. The first one going to find a basic island. That means the battle lands are good to go now, as there are 2 basic islands on the battlefield. That's battle land number 1 in Prairie Stream, and battle land number 2 in Prairie Stream.
Appears as though Lamunyon has board in his Monastery of Mentors.
Okay. Another card that is trending upward in Standard right now. I know a lot of players like that one as well.
And it's kind of a recipe out of the Jeskai playbook here. If you assume your Scott-Vargas is just going to be boarding into card drawing and counter spells and things to hang around in your late game, he may not have that much creature removal left in his deck. And an uncontested Monastery Mentor can end the game very quickly.
Dig through time in Lamunyon's hand. We know about the Languish as well, but Languish not particularly good on this board. Might have to cast it. We'll have to find out. 3 cards in the graveyard now for Josh as well. So Jace, if it were to activate, wouldn't be able to flip very easily. But it's time for him to draw and discard. Didn't get a great look at the draw step. Actually, I believe Duress now. keep in mind, however, Lamunyon with only one black source of mana on the battlefield. He'll discard a swamp.
His hand also looks a little bottlenecked on black mana right now. I mean, he's only got the one black source in play.
And so discarding a swamp looks a little strange.
With Languish in hand as well.
Yep.
I don't know if he has another land.
Murderous Cut. Gonna go after Tasigur. Luis is gonna respond. Smoldering Marsh is the land he'll search of a Bloodstained Mire. I think we'll see ourselves a Tasigur activation here in just a moment. And we do. So 2 cards into the graveyard. Painful Truth and, Ojutai's Command. That kind of sums up exactly what this deck does, right?
Yep.
Painful Truth and Ojutai's Command both in one reveal.
Scott-Vargas' goal in the matchup is get to the board a bit faster than Lamunyon does, but also be able to hang around later in the game.
Yep.
Like, and if he has counter spells, Painful Truth, Ojutai's Command is going to be a 2-for-1. He can do that. In game 1, he stumbled out of the gates. He missed his land drop. He was missing red mana and so forth. And so Lamunyon got to make his land drops and play his more powerful cards. But this is the kind of the spot that Scott-Vargas wants to be in, where he's pressuring, but also not just dead to a sweeper or one big creature resolving.
It's an attack for 2. 23-5 now the life totals. And now in the second main phase, we'll see where Luis wants to go next. Remember, just added Ojutai's Command to his hand, so does he want to leave that up? Does he have other options? You also got a Soulfire Grandmaster out there with a lot of mana. It's a lot for Lamunyon to think about as he heads to his turn. Looks like he might open up on Duress. And there is the powerful discard spell. Luis will show his hand, Utter End, Painful Truth, 2 copies of Ojutai's Command, a Plains, and a Bloodstained Mire.
And Luis leaving up the mana here out of respect for a dragon resolving. What this means, though, right now, the window is open for a spell to resolve.
Yes.
Lamunyon can't resolve a creature, obviously, because of Ojutai's Command, but any spell is good to go. So this might be a window for him to say, dig through time.
Lamunyon will record the contents of Scott-Vargas' hand. And now activate Jace. Draw and discard. Found a copy of Utter End, but again, black mana appears to be the bottleneck. There goes Languish. That's card number 4 in the graveyard. Now remember, he did delve for that Murderous Cut. Now here's Utter End to take care of Jace for good. It'll be exiled. Scott-Vargas will untap. Time for him to take a draw step. Soulfire Grandmaster into the red zone. Lamunyon gonna fall down to 3. Scott-Vargas gonna go up to 25. A Plains here for Luis. And is there a follow-up? It appears there is in Jace. Never a bad thing.
No. And Scott-Vargas not showing a whole lot of respect here for Languish, as Lamunyon has discarded a copy and is missing double black.
A dig through time here from Josh. He'll take a look at the top 7. And he'll be taking 2 with him.
And you can see the plan that Scott-Vargas is trying to execute here. He's not worried about any of the spells really resolving at this point. He's worried about creatures, because a Dragon Lord Silumgar can easily swing this game around, so he's leaving up his mana. If Lamunyon happens to find a sweeper, if he goes, Swamp Languish, Scott-Vargas does lose 2 creatures, but he can untap, cast Painful Truths, and still leave up Ojutai's Command. So he doesn't care too much about spells right now. What he's worried about the creatures, he's playing accordingly.
The other thing, too, if a Languish does show up right now, on the end step, he can just say, okay, Ojutai's Command, get my Soulfire Grandmaster back and keep attacking.
Right.
Something like that. He's got a lot of options because of the flexibility of Ojutai's Command.
But a big creature resolving is the thing that could possibly do him in here.
Yep.
And so he's playing around that.
Utter End's going to take care of Soulfire Grandmaster for good. Lamunyon with just 1 mana available, but he does have a copy of Dispel in hand. Jace is going to draw and discard. And it will be flipping as well, so Telepath Unbound here. Might have some interest in maybe recasting a Painful Truth, and that doesn't surprise me much. Scott-Vargas going to check to how he wants to pay for it. He's going to use the basics. It'll be for 3, so 3 cards coming. Next up for Luis. a duress of his own. He wants to see what Josh is working with, especially post the dig through time. So an anticipate, a scatter to the winds, a dispel, a duress, and a majoring network. Not the scariest things to see on the other side of the table.
No, and now, Scott-Vargas can possibly be a little bit more risky tapping out for some stuff because there's no creature for him to worry about. This is not a terrible hand here for Lamunyon, as he at least has a path here of try to activate Shambling Vent and leave up counter spells. Depending on Scott-Vargas' hand, this might not work, but
I think Tasker might change some things.
yes, this is not the follow-up Lamunyon wants to see.
Looks like Luis going to delve away 5 cards to pay for Tasker. A Mountain, a Dragon Master Outcast with plenty of lands to start cranking out dragons. And now we're going to head back Lamunyon's way. He does have double black now. It took him a little while to get there. But he's in some serious trouble now. And that is going to do him in right away, as Luis Scott-Vargas is going to win game number 2 here over Josh Lamunyon. Jeskai Black, Esper Control, getting ready here for game number 3.
And you can see the recipe there for Scott-Vargas is just get out on the board a little bit sooner than Lamunyon does and push on him for the whole game. With Tassiker, with Dig Through Times, with his own dispels and duresses, he can play that sort of late game counter spell, try to finagle that kind of situation. What Scott-Vargas needs to do to leverage all that kind of stuff is get on the board and start threatening damage. He was able to do it in game 2.
And Soulfire Grandmaster is a unique threat in this matchup because it is just a 2/2 for 2 mana, but if we are going to play a little bit of a longer game, it obviously shines there given its keywords and its text.
Yes, and it's part of both plans, which is get on the table and force Lamunyon to respond to threats ahead of schedule. That's one way Scott-Vargas gets an edge. And the other is the game goes on for a million turns, and Scott-Vargas has cards like Soulfire Grandmaster and Jace that are as powerful as 7 or 8 mana plays in plenty of those situations.
Yeah, generally pretty happy with that to start the game, get some pressure going as we saw there in game number 2. So game number 3 going to be underway here in just a moment. Lamunyon will be on the play. In the meantime, we're going to talk about the holiday sale that's taking place over at Star City Games. December 1st to January 1st, you can get a lot of awesome deals at the website.
Yeah, there's 50% off select rares, just a variety of rares, so go check out for yourself. Also, we're going to have stocking stuffers all month long. You see there, we have some of the figurines, sleeves, deck boxes, extended art, metal, for Zendikar lands, and so forth. So a lot of great holiday sales going to be going on all month long.
And this particular sale is going to end at Monday at 10:59 a.m., but we have new sales coming basically every day. So new items, as it says on the bottom, they're added at 11 a.m. Eastern time, Monday to Friday. So definitely check it out, StarCityGames.com. See what the new holiday sale will be all the way up until January 1st, which will close out this year. We'll be getting ready for the new year in 2016. The SCG Tour will begin things in Cincinnati at the beginning of next year. So looking forward to that. But we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because we got this tournament. We've got, of course, our Las Vegas Invitational next weekend, and then that Players Championship. A lot of tournaments to close out this year. A lot of big tournaments to close out this year.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas into the Players Championship is a very nice set of back-to-back weekends.
Yeah, it's a heck of a 1-2 punch there. Myself, Patrick, Matthias, will be bringing you the coverage of both of those big tournaments. December 11th through the 13th, that's next weekend in Las Vegas. We'll be crowning everything, basically. Season 4 Invitational Champion, Season 4 Points Champion, and of course, punching those 7 at-large bids to the Players Championship, and then the actual Players Championship, December 19th and the 20th at the Players Championship at the Star City Games Center in Roanoke, Virginia.
We got a quick turnaround, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I get back from this show Monday afternoon, drive out to Vegas Wednesday afternoon, drive back from Vegas, let's call it Sunday evening, Monday early in the morning.
Yep.
Wednesday or Thursday, fly out for the Players Championship.
And then we're calling that bad boy.
It's a lot. It's a lot, but I'm excited.
And then, of course, as you see the 7 players that are currently qualified here in Jacob Wilson, Jim Davis, Alex Bistecki, Danny Jessup, Ali Antrazi, Kevin Jones, and of course, defending champion Brad Nelson. But after the Players Championship is over, you get to put the feet up for a couple weeks.
Yeah, for a little bit.
Yeah.
I got a solid week to myself.
Yeah, Christmas, New Year's, dial up the old Magic Online.
Yes.
We both know. Let me fire up some Tarka Red, maybe a little Cube over the weekend. I imagine Holiday Cube will be back on Magic Online.
I dabble with the cubes. It's not a big driver for me.
Sometimes I'm just in the mood for Holiday Cube.
Yeah, I've had my moments. And it's also an opportunity for me to play some stuff that I don't often do. I love a tooth and nail in Cube.
Ugh, you're the enemy.
Yeah, I love the green cards.
You're the bad guy.
In Cube, everyone's the bad guy.
Okay, that's completely
You're either
fair.
Fire Blast Red or a million counter spells or some land destruction deck. No one has a reasonable deck. If your deck is fun to play against, your deck is horrible.
Yeah, for some sort of green-red Hunt Master of the Fells deck. Here's my Tarmogoyf.
I've got Thrag Tusk.
Yeah.
All right, you can't beat anyone ever. Enjoy playing your one round.
A Jace here on turn 2 for Scott-Vargas. For Lamunyon, just a couple of lands to start. Polluted Delta, Prairie Stream, now an island. He'll pass the turn back. It doesn't look like Josh's deck, given that we saw game 1 and now this game thus far, doesn't have a lot of early answers to Jace.
It's tough. You know, there's so many removal spells in this deck that cover it sometimes but don't cover it other times, or it's a little slow to bring to bear. Like, how many ultimate prices are you supposed to leave in your deck? If Luis is all on Manus Riders and late game control cards, it's not very good. But if Scott-Vargas has a Jace here and you can't answer it, that's bad news as well. It's hard for Lamunyon to play as mana efficiently as Scott-Vargas does, and there's all these threats that Scott-Vargas has that if Lamunyon doesn't have an immediate answer to it, run away with the game, and he doesn't have that many answers to all the different threats.
Yeah, what I also find interesting too is a card like Silk Wrap is not as popular as it once was, a month or two ago.
Well, this deck is basically I guess it's a flat 3 colors. He does have 2 main deck copies of Planar Outburst, but these Esper decks to me almost feel like they're just base blue-black.
Okay.
That's the mana you're trying to get earlier on in the game.
Scott-Vargas going to sacrifice Polluted Delta here.
But no copies of Silk Wrap in the 75. And that is problematic here, as that's a card that answers everything and has the additional benefit of exiling, so you don't have to worry about Ojutai's command.
Yep. Luis has something to do on the end step here. We'll see. Another thing to keep in mind here, too, because we are in a sideboarded game, we have an idea of what cards Luis wants to sideboard in, but it's tough to speculate what he wants to sideboard out. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Mantis Riders are all out of his deck, or maybe he's down to 2 or 1 of those.
Especially when he saw main deck Surge of Righteousness.
Right?
That means he might just be trying to set up for a longer game where, yes, he's trying to pressure Lamunyon, but he's not just trying to curve out with creatures. He's trying to get a little bit going on the board, draw some extra cards, counter some critical spells, and slowly chip away at Lamunyon's life total, which is basically what we saw in game 2.
How many Crackling Dooms does Luis have in his deck after sideboard? He's starting 4 this weekend. We've seen Jeskai Black decks play as many as 4, as few as 1.
I think given the quality of Lamunyon's creatures that he could potentially have, I would probably, if I was in Scott-Vargas' position, leave in 1 or 2. I would get some of them out of the deck, but I don't think I'd go down to 0. It's very risky.
Lamunyon going to sacrifice the Polluted Delta here. He'll fall down to 19, tie the game up. And now he's got a Murderous Cut to go after Jace. We'll see if this resolves. Scott-Vargas does have Negate in his hand. He wants to protect the creature that can flip into a Planeswalker, especially when there are 4 cards in the graveyard now.
And a great opening here for Scott-Vargas. Got on the table with Jace. Lamunyon does nothing for the first 4 turns of the game. When he finally goes to remove the Jace, Scott-Vargas has a mana-efficient answer for it. Still has mana at the ready. Could have another counterspell ready to go. And Jace is still in play, and Scott-Vargas has a full hand of cards.
Bloodstained Mire, and now a Jace here for Lamunyon. Well, Lamunyon's Jace a little late to the party here. We're going to head back over to Scott-Vargas. He'll draw. We'll see if he wants to activate Jace right away or not. The answer is yes. 4 cards in the graveyard. This will be card number 5 here in just a moment. We mentioned Crackling Doom, not the sexiest card in this situation, but it does get Jace off the table. I mean, you're typically trying to hit a home run with that thing, but it might be good enough right now.
And, again, all Scott-Vargas is starting to do is get these little incremental advantages in the middle turns here without exposing himself to any disaster. So if he can kill Jace and leave up a counterspell, that's a good turn, even if it isn't the juiciest Crackling Doom target.
Smoldering Marsh down into the graveyard. Jace the Telepath Unbound is here. Luis will take a look at the graveyard, see if he wants to flashback anything. The answer is no. And Jace is going to tick up to 6. Land number 5 of Plains here for Luis. And he'll just pass the turn back. No interest in casting Crackling Doom just yet. Lamunyon will take a draw step. Dragonlord Salumgar the draw. It's a Jace activation. Negate is the draw here for Lamunyon. He does need to discard a card. It'll be a second card in the graveyard to go along with that Murderous Cut. Down goes Windswept Heath. There is Polluted Delta. And pass that turn back. Crackling Doom here for Luis.
If Scott-Vargas Crackling Doomed now instead of right away, to me it implies that he probably does not have another counterspell in his hand.
Okay.
He was leaving that in his hand to protect himself against a dragon. When none showed to the party, might as well just Crackling Doom, get the Jace off the table. But there's a little bit of information to be gained there.
Dragon Master Outcast. Does he have land number 6? Well, he's going to take a look at the graveyard here. Jace's going to go up to 7. And now there is a Flooded Strand.
And this card is so critical in these kind of matchups. How's your opponent supposed to win these sort of counterspell battles when you have to initiate it on a 1-mana play on turn 12?
Yep.
Really hard to do.
4-mana answer there, Nutter, and taking down a 1-mana spell in Dragon Master Outcast. Those are the kind of exchanges you want to make.
Yeah.
Utter End, one of my favorite cards in this format because it is so polarizing. It's obviously very good. The text on the card is quite relevant, but you got to pay the price.
Yes. Full retail. You are not getting a discount on this thing, but it is serviceable and flexible.
It just seems like every deck that has white and black mana, you want at least 1.
Yep.
You probably want 2. You probably can't play more than 2 because it's so gosh darn expensive.
I think you can board into a second copy in a lot of matchups. Utter End's also good against sideboard cards,
Yep.
so it gets a little bit better in sideboarded games.
And sideboard games do tend to slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you're past the first copy in the main deck, I think you're really pushing it. I remember Todd's build of Jeskai Black, I think he had 2 in the main deck, but because he did not have Manus Rider, his deck was especially vulnerable to Gideon, so we needed
Sure.
to have a clean answer there.
Well, speaking of Mantis Rider, here one is for Scott-Vargas. So he didn't board them all out. We're not sure how many he has in after sideboard, but we know there's at least 1 as he comes across for 3. Lamunyon going to sacrifice 2 fetch lands here. And he might be thinking Dig Through Time, as he does have a copy of that in his hand. He also has a copy of Dragonlord Salumgar in the grip.
Yeah. Lamunyon's hand right now is excellent. He has, I believe, a Dispel, a Dig Through Time, and a Dragonlord Salumgar.
Yep.
Gives him some good paths here. If Scott-Vargas is on 1 counterspell, what likely happens here is Lamunyon gets to resolve the Dig Through Time, counter back on Scott-Vargas' counterspell, untap, and play Dragonlord Salumgar and take something. That's an awesome turn. Lamunyon's 3-card hand here, just about ideal.
Well, there is Dig. He'll delve away some number of cards. Doesn't have to delve them all away. Got plenty of mana to work with. And now Dig will resolve. So, Josh Lamunyon going to take a look at the top 7, take 2 with him. Among those cards, there's a Monastery Mentor in there that you can see. Duress as well, in case he wants to maybe clear a path. The unique thing about this particular standard format is you see the deck names here, Jeskai Black, Esper Control, but you can build these 2 decks a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, the number of 2-ofs in the spells in Lamunyon's main deck. Utter End, Anticipate, Planar Outburst, Negate, Ultimate Price, Ugin, Dispel, Clash of Wills, Languish, Murderous Cut, Horribly Arise, Scout of the Wind, Slumgar's Command. Just all over the place.
Jeez.
There's just a lot of different threat cards you have to answer.
And you hope they all line up right.
Right.
Scatter to the Wind's the draw for the turn. There's the Flooded Strand. And now here's Dragonlord Salumgar. And this one, much like in the last game that we saw, lines up so well against Crackling Doom.
Yes, I mean, this is perfect here because Lamunyon gets to negate back. Curious to see what he's going to take. He can take the Manus Rider here and start threatening the Jace. And it's not like Scott-Vargas can easily flash back the Crackling Doom because Lamunyon can simply sacrifice the Manus Rider.
Another Sunken Hollow there for Lamunyon. That'll help him cast the negate. It is curious on what you take here.
Well, Jace is definitely a shoot the moon play because you can plus it if Scott-Vargas can't do anything. You can even make an emblem the next turn.
Yep. Hello. All right, he's going to take Jace, plus it up, knocked out Manus Rider. He's going for broke.
Yeah, if Scott-Vargas can answer the Manus Rider, the Dragonlord with Crackling Doom, that's where Lamunyon gets punished for this line.
Ochtai's Command. This might just be gain life, draw a card, hope to hit. You see the mana's out there for Luis to be able to catch Crackling Doom, but he does not find it, and now we're going to go back Lamunyon's way. He'll draw a copy of Dispel, which is very nice for the turn. Gonna cash it in. He's getting an emblem. Now here's duress. Mill you a couple. Luis's hand, disdainful stroke and a land, and he's gonna get milled 5 cards. Disdainful stroke down.
And I think it's going to be hard pressed for Scott-Vargas to come back from this.
It'll be tough. Mystic Monastery pass the turn back over to Lamunyon. Lamunyon will draw. He'll just pass the turn back over to Scott-Vargas. We know Scott-Vargas' card. It's a Flooded Strand. Pass again. Dig through time here for Josh Lamunyon. That's going to mill Scott-Vargas 5 cards. What an interesting change of events here. Wasn't sure exactly what card Lamunyon wanted to take with Dragonlord Slumguard. Decided to shoot the moon, take the Jace, hope for the best, and it's clearly worked out.
Yeah, and you know, you would figure Scott-Vargas has only got so many Crackling Dooms in his deck. He's already cast 1.
Yep.
And Lamunyon still had leftovers in his hand in the event that that plan failed. So went for the greedy play, but had a backup plan in case it didn't work out.
A Jace and a mill. 5 cards down there for Scott-Vargas yet again. It's going to take a heck of a couple of draws here for Luis to be able to get back to this one, in this one. It's not impossible, it's just really hard. He'll play Polluted Delta. There's Fiery Impulse. Going to go after Jace. Dispel will counter the Fiery Impulse and mill Scott-Vargas 5 cards. Now Lamunyon gets to keep the Jace, and now he's untapping with an active Jace. Anticipate will mill Luis 5 cards. Lamunyon will take a look at the top couple of cards, take one of those with him. He selects Negate. A very nice selection here. Now Jace. Draw and discard. I think his hand might just be 4 counter spells. Yeah, if my opponent's discarding Negate there, I'm done. That's it. I cannot win. Luis knows that, and he's going to concede the game. Josh Lamunyon going to win this match over Luis Scott-Vargas, 2-1. Esper Control going to take down Jeskai Black for Josh Lamunyon. A very difficult pairing for obvious reasons in round number 1 against the Hall of Famer, but able to get the job done.
And in this matchup, I feel like Jeskai has to get on the table early and then fend off the late game from the Esper deck. And Luis was only able to do that really in game 2. In game 1, he stumbled, couldn't really get out of the gates, and Lamunyon just got to make his land drops and play bigger and better stuff. And in game 3, Luis, I assume he drew quite a few lands there, didn't have a lot in the ways of counter spells, and just didn't have enough fight in it when Lamunyon started going for some big plays.
Now, what's interesting here with this Esper Control deck is, you know, we've seen a couple different builds of Esper Control. Mostly, Esper